What if I told you that Bob Marley's final concert wasn't just another show, but a moment filled with meaning that some people believe had a much deeper impact than anyone expected? September 23rd, 1980. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A legendary artist steps onto the stage for what would become his last performance. Hidden within the songs, the atmosphere, and the timing of that night, many see a message that reached far beyond music, a message about change, influence, and ideas that not everyone was ready to hear. By the end of this video, you may never see Bob Marley in quite the same way again. Bob Marley was far more than a reggae singer. By 1980, he had become a global cultural voice, someone whose lyrics spoke openly about society and the challenges faced by people around the world. What many don't realize is how closely his work connected with major events of his time, movements for social progress, and discussions happening behind the scenes. He didn't just sing about harmony, he understood the realities of inequality, historical pressure, and the forces that shaped entire nations. Now, let's go back a bit. In the late 1970s, Marley survived a frightening incident in Jamaica just 2 days before the Smile Jamaica concert. Armed men entered his home, injuring him, his wife Rita, and his manager. Despite this, Marley still chose to perform, showing incredible courage. To this day, the full details about the attack remain unclear, with different theories about who was involved and why. After the event, Marley spent time in London and continued touring. But those close to him noticed changes. He became more aware of the risks around him and the attention he attracted. Even so, he continued sharing his message. By 1980, Marley was reaching the height of his career, while also facing personal challenges. The Uprising Tour was originally meant to celebrate his new album, but some people believe it gradually became something more, almost like a final statement. To understand why Marley's last concert matters to so many, we need to look at the global situation in 1980. The Cold War was near its peak. The United States and the Soviet Union were competing for influence worldwide, and the Caribbean was one of the regions caught in this struggle. Jamaica, Marley's home, was governed by Michael Manley, whose administration maintained friendly ties with Cuba. This dynamic added tension to the area, especially considering the long history of international involvement in political affairs across Latin America and the Caribbean. There's documented evidence of CIA operations designed to undermine Manley's government, funding opposition parties, spreading propaganda, and yes, even orchestrating violence. Bob Marley understood all of this. He wasn't naive. His music constantly referenced Babylon, his term for the oppressive system of Western imperialism and capitalism. Songs like War, Get Up, Stand Up, and Redemption Song weren't just catchy tunes, they were revolutionary anthems calling for liberation from colonial powers. Marley had connections with African liberation movements, met with leaders fighting apartheid, and was deeply involved in Pan-African politics. He wasn't just singing to entertain, he was organizing consciousness on a global scale, and that made him dangerous. Here's where it gets interesting. In 1980, Zimbabwe gained independence after years of bloody guerrilla warfare against white minority rule. Bob Marley was invited to perform at the independence celebration in April of that year. Think about the symbolism there. A black musician from the Caribbean performing at the birth of a free African nation, celebrating the defeat of colonialism. Marley's performance in Zimbabwe wasn't just a concert, it was a statement that the tide was turning, that oppressed people around the world were rising up. Intelligence agencies in the West were paying attention. They saw Marley as more than a musician. They saw him as an organizer, an influencer who could inspire revolution. So when Marley returned to tour North America later that year, there was an undercurrent of tension. He was being monitored. Some researchers claim that intelligence files on Marley were extensive, tracking his movements, his associations, his political statements. The question becomes, what was Marley planning to say? What message was he trying to deliver during the Uprising Tour? And did someone want to silence that message before it spread too far? Now here's where things take a dark turn. In 1977, 3 years before his final concert, Bob Marley received a gift. It was a pair of boots from a man claiming to be a fan. But this wasn't just any pair of boots. According to witnesses close to Marley, including his personal physician Dr. Frazier, there was something inside one of those boots. A copper wire, or some say a contaminated nail, embedded in the toe area. Marley loved playing soccer, and shortly after receiving these boots, he injured his toe during a game. The wound seemed minor at first, just a small cut, but it never healed properly. Instead, it festered and darkened. When doctors finally examined it, they discovered melanoma, an aggressive form of skin cancer that had already begun spreading through his body. Here's the thing that conspiracy researchers can't let go of. Melanoma under a toenail is extremely rare, especially in someone of Marley's age and background. Even more suspicious, the cancer spread with unusual speed and aggression. Some medical professionals have suggested that this pattern is consistent with induced cancer, a technique that intelligence agencies had been experimenting with during that era. Declassified documents reveal that the CIA had developed methods to deliver carcinogens through seemingly innocent objects, contact poisons that could cause cancer months or years later, leaving no immediate trace. Was Bob Marley targeted with biological warfare disguised as a sports injury? The man who gave him those boots was never found. He vanished without a trace, and no one has been able to identify him to this day. Marley initially refused to have his toe amputated, citing his Rastafarian beliefs about keeping the body whole. But by 1980, the cancer had metastasized to his brain, lungs, and liver. He was dying, and he knew it. Yet, he continued touring. He kept performing night after night, his body failing him, but his spirit refusing to quit. Friends say he was driven by something urgent, a need to deliver his message while he still could. During the Uprising tour, Marley was physically deteriorating. Band members noticed he was losing weight, struggling with coordination, suffering from headaches. But every night, he took that stage and gave everything he had. Why? What was so important that he pushed through unimaginable pain to keep going? Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Stanley Theater. This would be Bob Marley's final performance ever, though nobody in that audience knew it at the time. The show started late, as many of Marley's concerts did, but when he walked onto that stage, something was different. Eyewitnesses describe a man who looked gaunt, almost ethereal, but with an intensity in his eyes that was almost frightening. He opened with Natural Mystic, a song with haunting lyrics about forces that can't be seen but are felt everywhere. Then he moved through his setlist, each song carefully chosen, each lyric loaded with meaning. Them belly full, warning that hungry people are angry people. Exodus, calling for movement and liberation. Running away, about facing truth instead of hiding from it. But it was during Redemption Song that something extraordinary happened. This wasn't his usual high-energy performance. Marley sat alone with an acoustic guitar, his voice raw and vulnerable, singing about emancipating yourself from mental slavery. The crowd fell silent. People say you could feel the weight of the moment, as if Marley was channeling something beyond himself. Some audience members reported feeling emotional without understanding why, as if they were witnessing a final testament. In bootleg recordings of that night, you can hear the strain in his voice, but also a desperate urgency. He emphasized certain phrases, repeated lines with unusual intensity. Was he trying to tell us something? Was there a coded message in his performance that night? After the show, Marley collapsed. He attempted to continue the tour, managing to perform 2 more shows in New York, but his health was deteriorating quickly. During a jog in Central Park, he collapsed once more, and this time it became clear that he could no longer push himself. The tour was cancelled. Marley later sought treatment in Germany with a doctor known for unconventional approaches to cancer, but unfortunately, the illness was already too advanced. He passed away on May 11th, 1981, at only 36 years old. His final words to his son Ziggy were striking. "Money can't buy life." But what was he trying to express? Was he reflecting on his own mortality, or hinting at something broader about systems that prioritize profit over people? About structures that tend to silence voices that challenge the status quo? Let's connect the pieces. In the months before his passing, Bob Marley had become more than a global artist. He had become a symbol of resilience that reached across continents and political divides. His impact stretched into Africa, the Caribbean, South America, and even regions behind the Iron Curtain. Young listeners in restricted countries found ways to hear his music. Groups seeking change used his songs as inspiration. Marley had the rare ability to bring people together across different backgrounds. And that kind of unity can be unsettling to those who benefit from division. Now think about the moment in history. Ronald Reagan was about to take office, marking the beginning of a period defined by strong anti-communist policies. Many powerful institutions involved in global politics and economics were focused on limiting voices that encouraged social transformation. Marley wasn't only promoting peace, he was highlighting the workings of inequality and calling out what he referred to as Babylon, pointing to the systems he believed held people down. Then there are the theories people often discuss. The unusual incident involving a pair of boots, the rare and aggressive form of cancer. Historical records showing that intelligence agencies around the world, including the CIA, have at times interfered with political movements. The fact that Marley had already survived an attack years earlier and later developed an illness that some observers find oddly timed. There are also comments from people close to him who say Marley had a sense that something about his condition wasn't entirely natural. His daughter Cedella has spoken about her father feeling targeted, and former band members have hinted at details they prefer not to fully disclose. The story seems to carry a lingering shadow, a sense that not everything is fully explained. This brings us back to the Pittsburgh concert. If Marley sensed that his time was limited, if he believed his illness had been triggered by more than chance, then that final show becomes even more meaningful. It wasn't simply a performance, it may have been his last opportunity to communicate something important. Every song he chose, every line he emphasized, every moment on stage may have been deliberate. It was as if he wanted to leave a record, to make sure future generations would continue questioning, searching, and listening. Redemption Song wasn't just a beautiful melody. It was a call to wake up, to break the chains of mental colonization, to recognize the systems that enslave us. That's what they wanted to stop. Not just the man, but the message. So what's the truth? Was Bob Marley murdered by intelligence agencies threatened by his revolutionary influence? The official story says he died of natural causes, that the cancer was simply bad luck, a tragic medical condition. But when you examine the evidence, the coincidences, the suspicious circumstances, the historical context, it becomes harder to accept that narrative. We know intelligence agencies have assassinated leaders before. We know they've used biological weapons. We know they've targeted artists and activists who threatened the status quo. Marley checked every box. He was influential, political, uncompromising, and most dangerous of all, he was effective at uniting oppressed people across the globe. The real conspiracy isn't just about whether Marley was murdered, it's about why his story matters today. Because the systems he fought against, the Babylon he sang about, they're still here. They've evolved, adapted, become more sophisticated, but the fundamental structures of oppression, exploitation, and control remain. Marley understood that true revolution happens in the mind first. You can't free people's bodies until you free their consciousness. That's why Redemption Song tells us to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. That's why his final performance feels like a warning echoing through time. The forces that potentially killed Bob Marley are still operating, still silencing voices that speak uncomfortable truths, still prioritizing power and profit over human dignity. His last show in Pittsburgh wasn't just the end of a tour. It was a moment frozen in history, where a dying man used his final strength to plant seeds of awareness that would grow long after his body returned to the earth. Whether you believe he was assassinated or not, the fact remains that Bob Marley was a threat to powerful interests, and his death conveniently silenced one of the most influential revolutionary voices of the 20th century. Listen to his music again, with fresh ears. Pay attention to what he was really saying. Look at who benefited from his silence. And ask yourself, in a world where truth-tellers are dangerous, how many other Bob Marleys have been eliminated before their message could spread? That's the real conspiracy. Not just one man's death, but the systematic suppression of revolutionary consciousness across generations. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know before, if it made you question the official narratives we're fed, then do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss our deep dives into the stories they don't want you to know. Smash the like button if you think Bob Marley's message is still relevant today. Drop a comment below telling me what you think. Was he murdered? Or was it really just cancer? And most importantly, share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this story. Bob Marley's message was too powerful to be contained by his death. And together, we can make sure it reaches the people who need it most. Until next time, keep questioning everything, and remember what Bob taught us. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds.